Hello everybody, this is Pitejo from Will of the Ages, and today I will tell you about the first game that we played in the finals of the Essence Meta Triangular League. The game was between Lich King from Team Germany versus Rob from Team United States. They were playing with Saurian Ancients versus the Vampire Covenant. You have seen the patrols in the past. You can always pause the video and look at them more closely. We were playing with the map with the two forests in the north, and then impassable and elevation one of the sides. RH world building, playing with Saurian Ancient, got turn 1 and he decided to deploy as so, with the skinks behind the hindering terrain and then the caimans to the north. You can see them also in the top view, to which Lich King responded with zombies in the center, with the vampire inside the unit, and then the other two units to the two sides. Now in turn 1, for the Saurian Ancient, there's of course no charges. We go into movement phase, and Rob turns into a wedge to match the movement from the vampire to the other side, the deployment to the other side. In the magic phase, Rob gets 5 dice and he throws all of them into a fireball. But this fireball only manages to do 0 wounds to the Spectral Hunters, which save all of them through the armor and the Aegis save. But on top of that, there's a miscast for the Huatl, which suffers 2 wounds. So worst luck possible for poor Rob in the beginning of this phase. We go into turn 1 for the vampire. No shooting because the skinks were too far away. They only have 12 inches shooting. No charges, and then in the movement phase, as you can see, the Spectral Hunters move aggressively. Remember that they have fly, so they can bump up to and close to the building without too much of a problem. And then the ghouls advance, but not too much because they're a bit scared of the charge from the caimans in the north, and then the zombies advance in the center. In the magic phase, 5 dice v2. There's no arise to cast because there's no wound being inflicted, so it's just 1 hasten the hour that goes on to the Coatl, but I think that the Coatl manages to dispel it or something. In turn 2 for the Saurian Ancient, again there is no charges, and in the movement phase, as you can see, the Saurian warriors stay where they are. The Coatl goes behind them because it's a bit worried about the haste in the hour. But also still in a way they can get line of sight onto the cavalry. The skinks advance up to where they are in range with the javelin for shooting, and also they are in the zone. And then the caimans go around. They pass a dangerous terrain test, and they manage to get out of line of sight of the ghouls, which cannot charge them anymore. In the magic phase is 7v4, so Rob puts flaming swords on the skinks, essentially because it's an insurance policy against being charged by the ghouls. Puts a fireball onto the Spectral Hunters and manages to kill 1 eventually. Then in the shooting phase, it's only hitting on, I suppose, on 5s and 6s, which are the wound because they have poison, and manages to do a whopping 6 wounds to the zombies, which is a lot, I would say, a lot of wounds, 6 wounds. Now in turn 2, there are no charges. In the movement phase, there's only a backtracking of the Spectral Hunters, and then a reshuffling of the ghouls in a way that they cannot be flanked by any of those. Everybody's within 6 inches, and that means that in the magic phase, Lich King can cast an Arise and bring back a couple of 4 zombies and the 1 Spectral Hunter that had died, and that's how it ends because there's no shooting for the vampires. Now in Yeah, I think that in the turn 3 for the Saurian Ancients, there's no charges being declared, and in the movement phase, the Skinks backtrack, and then the Caimans rush forward so that they are outside again from the other side of the line of sight of the ghouls. And also, if zombies want to charge them, they have to charge them in the front, limiting the number of attacks that they can be, increasing the number of attacks that the Caimans can do. The Saurian warriors have to dash forward to try and help that fight that the Caimans hopefully are gonna endure, and the Coatl gets right behind them. Now in the magic phase is 6v4, and Rob casts a scorching salvo that puts 3 wounds on the ghouls and 1 again on the spectral hunters. But it also miscasts, so it gets yet another wound on the poor Coatl. Then I think that in the other spell got dispelled. I think it was a fireball again on the special hunters. Or maybe a flaming swords. In the shooting phase, the Skinks shoot again shoot at the ghouls, and this time only inflict 1 wound instead of the 6 that they had done on the zombies. And that's the end for Rob's turn 3. Then in the Vampire Covenant turn 3, charge phase stuff starts to happen. The ghouls need a 7 inches charge on the Skinks, which have to accept because they wouldn't be able to get back into the zone if they fled this one. So that charge works. And in the zombies declare a charge on the Caimans, which also have to hold for the same reason. And then the spectral hunters declare a charge on the Caimans as well. And all the charges are successful. So you first see the ghouls impacting into the Skinks. The ghouls are technically in the scoring zone because you count the unit boundary. So even if this bit ends up being empty with no model, it still counts as scoring for the purposes of the winning conditions of the game. And then both units make it, and in order to maximize the number of models in the fight, and this is how Lich King aligns the unit, bringing the vampire, 4 zombies, the 5 behind, and 1 spectral hunter into contact. Charge phase, all 3 charges. Everybody in the army is in contact. Then in the magic phase, Lich King casts Arise again, and then gets 2 ghouls just by a fraction of an inch inside the 6 inches of effect of the spell, 4 zombies and 1 spectral hunter, which means that in the second half of turn 3, the Vampire Covenant has only lost 2 ghouls. Everything else was re-raised, full strength. So what happens in the combat between ghouls and Skinks? Well, the ghouls kill 5 Skinks, the entire rank, and the Skinks kill 2 back. So in the end, it's an 8v3. Ghouls win by 5, even with cold-blooded. Cold-blooded 3 is still ugly. So Rob fails that, and the Skinks are fleeing away from the ghouls, which means that the ghouls can pivot after combat, ignoring them, because the Skinks are not going to be an issue anymore with only 1 turn left to play, and then face the big stuff happening in the south. Big combat, maybe flanking the Saurian warriors later on. Then in the other combat, we see that the vampire attacks first and puts 2 wounds on the Caiman. Then the zombies attack at agility 1, which is still better than 0 of both the Caiman and the spectral hunters. And the zombies put 2 wounds on them. And then the agility 0 step The Spectral Hunter, there's only one in contact, has 2 attacks and puts both wounds in. So the Caimans are killed before they can do their 3 attacks, attacks back and kills 1 zombie. So 6 wounds on the Caimans versus 1 wound against the zombies. The Saurian warriors pass the panic tests, and Lich King decides to overrun and get out of potential overrun charges there, and ends up being outside of the scoring zone. Yeah. And then on the other hand, the zombies with the vampire pivot so that they can face the Saurian warriors. Turn 4, last turn for the Saurian Ancients. What happens is that phasing maneuver was very valid because the Saurian warriors charge in. You can also see that at the north, in the movement phase, the Skink Braves are rallying and then looking again into the center of the battlefield, even if that's not going to be very interesting. In the movement phase, something else that happens is that the Coatl goes and stops the ghouls from potentially charging into the flank of the Saurian warriors, and actually positions itself so that even if they destroy the Coatl, then they will be facing in the wrong direction, shall we say. Now, in the magic phase, there's only 3 dice, and so Rob decides to go with the flaming sword spell to make these Saurian warriors wound on a 2+ against the zombies. Then we jump into the combat phase, and the vampire kills 1 Saurian warrior, but the Saurian warrior kills 5 zombies plus charge plus rank. In the end, they win by 4, and so it's a bit of a carnage. It's like 9 wounds versus 1 at the end of the application of the undead rule. Undeads are not fleeing. They never flee. They never take a break test. By every point they lost the break test, they lose an additional model. So things are starting to get scary, because if this continues next turn, then the vampire is also going to be suffering from this rule, and it could pop even if it doesn't suffer any wounds directly. Then we go into the last turn for the Vampire Covenant, and in this last turn, in the charge phase, the ghouls charge into the Coatl just for the heck of it. And then in the movement phase, as you can see north, the Spectral Hunters pivot, try to get back into the zone, but they don't manage to do so, and that was a bit surprising, because we thought that they could, they have advanced 8, so they could have backtracked, just moving backwards by 4 inches like they had done on turn 2. But when you play on a tight time constraint, there's only 1 hour to play this game, and if you go over the 1 hour, you get a penalty. You get penalty points. Then some things slip through the cracks, and I think that at this point the game was more or less 59 minutes long, and so the Lich King was feeling the pressure. And spoiler alert, the game does go past 1 hour anyway, so things like this happen when you're playing under pressure. In the magic phase, it's a 5v4 dice. I think that Rob manages to dispel Rob does not manage to dispel the arise, so go back to 14 zombies and 13 ghouls. So again, only 3 models lost, only let's say 2 ghouls and 6 zombies lost so far. In the zombie combat, in the ghouls combat, the ghouls make short work of the Coatl, which is dead, but it effectively stopped, as you can see here, the ghouls from overrunning into the flank of the Saurian warriors. So good sacrifice. And then this is especially good because then in this combat, the vampire does manage to kill one Saurian warrior, but the warriors, they kill 10 zombies in return. That's a huge delta in terms of how many wounds are dealt. It's like there's 10 points different, and that means that the entire unit of zombies, including the vampire, pops up, and so the unit is destroyed. And this is the end of the game. There's one unit in the zone for the Vampire Covenant, notably the ghouls, and one in the Saurian warriors for the Saurian Ancient. And so at the end of the game, it's a 1 versus 1, but as we said before, with a penalty for slow play. So that means that, as you know, all players are starting with 9 points. You do one, you have one unit in the scoring zone, but the enemy has one unit in the scoring zone. So in theory, it should be no point difference. You should say 9 for both players. But since it was slow play, both get a -1. And so, you know, Lucky Sixes, who is indeed a lucky player, the player who's going to be playing with the Ivan Elves, is leading the group without even having played a first game. So, you know, that's his thing. I am stealing this last line from a battle report that has been made by Remy, and Remy has brought you a beautiful 1-hour bat rep, which is lasting as long as the game itself. It's on his channel, so if you want to know more, much more insight about all of these phases that I have just brushed over in this 10 minutes video, go check the battle report on his channel on YouTube. And that is all for me. I will see you for the next battle report very soon. Bye everybody.